At the end of the day, Chelsea put her son to sleep and went to bed. Her phone rang. It was her father. There had been an accident. Her mom was okay. The ambulance was on the way. She ran out the door. She lived right next door. She had no idea what had happened until she got there. As soon as she walked in, she could see her mother laying on the bed. Blood was all over the floor and the side of the bed. Her father was on the phone somewhere, maybe downstairs. She grabbed a towel off the floor and held it on her head. She yelled to him to please help her. She asked her mom to please squeeze her hand. Her mom did not respond. At one point, he said he was putting the gun away under the bed, and she sat down and the gun went off. Chelsea did not know at the time that he had also been shot. She remembered his hand being wrapped up. He had shot through his hand when he shot her mom. He said it was like this freak accident. It seemed unbelievable that someone would shoot themselves. He never wavered from the story that it was an accident. Trooper P.J. McGurran arrived at the residence with the homeowner, Bruno Rakuba. Bruno was open about talking with the police. He seemed to be trying to prove that he was innocent. He explained that they were both in bed, and he reached over and grabbed the gun. His wife was sitting on the bed on one side. He was on the other side, and he pulled the trigger by accident. Melissa died Saturday morning. Bruno seemed worried about the girls. Their mother was gone. Everyone felt horrible for him. That was his wife of 25 years. Chelsea had just lost her mom and thought she was probably going to lose her dad. She expected that her father would be charged with something. She thought maybe negligent homicide because he was negligent with a gun. He did not spend a single night in jail. Not every shooting is a crime. Investigators look at circumstances. They were convinced that they could not prove a case. Years later, investigators were reviewing all of the open case homicides, and this one caught their attention. They went down that rabbit hole of putting all the pieces together. Alarm bells went off when they saw a surveillance system and evidence that no one had looked at. The last time Melissa was ever seen was recorded on that system. Their window was open that time of year, so audio from inside the bedroom could be picked up as well. Investigators were able to hear their last conversation together, and then a gunshot went off. On a steamy August night in 2013, Melissa Rocuba was airlifted to the hospital, still clinging to life with a bullet wound to her head. Her then 22-year-old daughter, Chelsea, was already there when the helicopter arrived. She had no idea how she got down there. She was panicked and frantic. Her sister, Sabrina, who lived in Wisconsin, sped to the airport in tears. It was a lot of praying to God that their mom was going to be okay. Melissa's sister, Joanne, and their father, then a police sergeant in another county, raced to Melissa's bedside. It was a few hours of driving, and not that night. They got there really fast. Bruno was being treated at a different hospital where specialists operated on his hand. He had a hole through the middle of his hand. Pennsylvania State Police detectives wanted to know how the bullet went through Bruno's palm and hit Melissa in the head. Less than 15 hours after the shooting, with Bruno's hand freshly bandaged and Melissa on life support, detectives asked Bruno to walk them through his house and explain what happened after the couple arrived home from a night out with friends. They got home just before 10. After that, they went downstairs, washed up, came up to go to bed. Using a toy gun provided by police, Bruno demonstrated how he claimed his .40 caliber pistol went off accidentally. His wife was home alone all last week, so he left the gun in the top drawer on the nightstand because of recent break-ins. He said their grandson was coming over the next day, and he wanted to safely store the gun. He said he went to check the chamber to see if there was a round in there. Sitting on the mattress, still stained with his wife's blood, Bruno tried to show them what happened. He said she was sitting in the bed there and she was watching TV, and he just went like this, and she leaned back toward him, and he must have pulled it away and then shot through his hand. Earlier investigators had gone through the house shooting video of the scene and collecting evidence. They did not note any signs of a struggle. Hospital staff found no other injuries on Melissa. Bruno said they had been getting along just fine. There were no discussions or arguments or anything before that happened. He looked Chelsea in the face and said they walked in the house holding hands. There was no argument that night. Jack Wilkesy and his wife Tanya were out to dinner with Bruno and Melissa that evening. Everything seemed fine. There was no arguing. They were fine that night. The day after the shooting, Bruno agreed to a polygraph exam. According to police records, the results were inconclusive. Worried about her father, Chelsea suggested he speak with attorney Joe DeAndrea. DeAndrea was a fairly well-known criminal defense lawyer. Police had talked to Bruno without his participation or knowledge. Bruno was curious if there was anything he had to worry about. Melissa spent several days in intensive care. Chelsea talked to the neurologist and asked if there was something they could do. They tried to calm her down and told her there was no hope. 3 days after the shooting, Melissa's family made the agonizing decision to take her off life support. They knew she was suffering. It was August 10, 2013, at 1:45 in the morning when Melissa passed away. Joanne said they were all in shock. Even though no one in the family wanted to believe Bruno had deliberately shot Melissa, they were surprised when he was never arrested. Joanne's grandfather said if that happened in Bucks County, where he was a police officer, Bruno would have instantly been in cuffs. He did not spend a single night in jail, which seemed really weird. Andrea said the district attorney's office felt they did not have enough evidence to charge Bruno with murder and decided not to charge him at all. They were convinced that they could not prove a case. Melissa's death certificate listed her cause of death as a gunshot wound to the head. The manner of death was left pending. No one said they had concluded it was an accident. It was just still an open case. But as the family began to catch their breath and process Melissa's death, they slowly started comparing notes about Bruno's version of what happened and his behavior before and after the shooting. A case for murder began to unfold. Chelsea could not justify any of his stories. The daughters of Melissa and Bruno Rakuba said they grew up believing they had the ideal family. Their friends thought so too. Chelsea's best friends told her that her family was so loving and happy and they did everything together. Sabrina always wanted her sister's life. She had the kids. She had the marriage, the good guy. The couple met in the summer of 1988. Back then, Melissa, who was just 19 years old, was a police officer. Bruno, 22, was enlisted in the Navy. Joanne loved him when she met him. He seemed to love her sister. Melissa loved being a wife, and she loved being a mother. She was an amazing mom. Bruno was a great dad, said Sabrina. Her dad was wonderful. She could not complain about him as a dad. They went hunting together. They went fishing together. When she was real young, she wanted to cut her hair to be like her dad. That was how close they were. But as the girls grew older and became parents themselves, they said they began to see flaws in their parents' marriage. Chelsea and her ex-husband moved in with her parents when her daughter was about 9 months old. It seemed like all the time they were constantly arguing. The breaking point was when they got really drunk one night and Bruno grabbed Melissa by the back of the hair and whipped her into the wall. It made a really loud thud and she could not breathe. Chelsea said they could not stay there anymore. It was not healthy. She tried talking to her mom and Melissa downplayed it. She never wanted to talk bad about their dad to them. 2 weeks before the shooting, Chelsea said her mother shared a startling secret about something Bruno had done to her. Melissa took her for a ride in the car and told her that he had pulled a gun on her before. Melissa told Chelsea that she did not want to have sex with Bruno one night, and he pulled a gun on her over this. Chelsea wondered why she was being told this now. Melissa had never said a bad word about him before. All of a sudden, it was Chelsea. I just need you to know that your dad is not always who you think he is. Chelsea admitted that she had a bad feeling about her mother's shooting from the start, but stayed silent for the sake of her father. She did not want to just say something that would have put him in jail if he really did not do it. Joanne said she also had her doubts about her sister's death because just months before the shooting, Melissa told her she wanted out of her marriage. She was questioning things and asked how she would be able to do it on her own. Bruno was very controlling. Melissa could not go anywhere without him knowing her every move. Joanne said it was not long after Melissa's death when her mind began to race. She started playing back everything she could remember. For starters, Bruno spent very little time by his wife's side as she lay dying. He would come there, maybe stay like an hour, and then leave. When she died, he was not there. He was at the house. Chelsea said her father's behavior began to haunt her as well. Just hours after the shooting, Chelsea said her father asked her to bring him her mother's cell phone, which had not been collected by police. Her father wanted to erase a few text messages that he feared investigators might take the wrong way. It was like he did not want them to think anything because of like a little argument or something they had. Maybe it was that week or day. It struck Chelsea as odd at the time, but she did not want to believe it. With their mother still in intensive care and with the police finished collecting evidence, the girls said their father had another strange request. He asked them to get rid of the mattress. Bruno asked his girls to clean his house and get rid of the blood-stained mattress. He said he could not go home to that. He did not want to see all the blood. Chelsea was 21, 22 now, as an adult. She could not believe he asked them to do that. But she kept going and kept wanting to make sure he was okay. They were so concerned because he kept making comments that he was going to take his own life that he could not deal with this. They took the mattress in the back of a truck and burned it in the woods. Chelsea and Sabrina said that before their mother was even buried, their father asked for help purging all traces of her. He wanted them to get rid of everything. It was like he wanted her erased. All of Melissa's clothes, me. They had to go down to the thrift store where they donated the clothes, and Chelsea had to get clothes for her mom to bury her in. Bruno even got rid of Melissa's dog, Zeus. Melissa loved that dog. Bruno got rid of him right after she died. It was not long before Joanne said she began to suspect that Bruno had another motive for erasing the memory of Melissa. Melissa's best friend said that Bruno contacted her not too long after Melissa had passed away and asked how long she thought it was before he could kind of go public with dating someone. She asked if he was kidding. He was dead serious. Bruno was talking about Tanya Wilkesy, Jack Wilkesy's wife, the couple that Bruno and Melissa were out to dinner with on the night of the shooting. Jack said they were together 15 years at that time. He had no idea when the relationship began, but started noticing a big difference in his wife's relationship with Bruno the day after the shooting when he walked into Melissa's hospital room and found Tanya and Bruno. He thought they were kissing. They said they were talking in each other's ear, but they were embraced with each other. Jack said in the weeks after the shooting, he would often come home from work and find Bruno's car in his driveway. After a couple times, he asked why Bruno was coming there and why he could not wait till Jack got home at 5 or 4. Tanya and Bruno always made him out like he was the fool. He was seeing things he did not see. Within months of Melissa's death, Jack said his wife went missing from their home and he knew exactly where to find her. He woke up at 2 in the morning and she was not there. He thought to go to Bruno's house. He went and pulled out front. He blew the horn and she came walking out with her purse with barely any clothes on. She got in her car, drove to their house, packed her bags, and moved in with Bruno right there. Chelsea now had a new neighbor, Tanya Wilkesy. She remembered looking out her window, and Tanya was cooking Christmas dinner in her mom's kitchen. She was not invited. Chelsea said she forced herself to accept what was because she did not want her father to be alone. Then about a year and a half later, she said her father casually revealed an alarming new detail about her mother's shooting. She kind of always knew and did not want to believe it, but when she heard it come from his own mouth, she could not get past it. As the months ticked on, it was now 2015, about a year and a half since Bruno Rakuba had allegedly accidentally shot and killed his wife, Melissa. His daughter, Chelsea, said she was still struggling with her father's relationship with Tanya Wilkesy. She had to live there. She had to live there. She had to see her. Tanya cut her hair like her mom. She would go get her nails done like her mom. She sat on her mom's front porch in her mom's chair. With the passage of time, Chelsea said she finally had the courage to ask her father for an explanation about his actions on the night of the shooting, and she got an astonishing answer. He said he did not mean to kill her. He just tried to scare her. Chelsea said that Bruno changed his story and admitted that he and Melissa had been arguing the night of the shooting. The gun, he said, was just meant to frighten her. Then Chelsea said her father abruptly changed the subject. He said he had groceries in the car, and he turned around and walked out like he had not just said what he said to her. That was when she knew he actually held a gun to her mom on purpose, and she could never look at him the same. Chelsea said she spent months agonizing about what to do next, and then told her father she was going to share their conversation with investigators. He said go ahead. Anything she told them, he would ruin her credibility, and nobody would believe her. Chelsea said she was now determined and went down to the state police barracks and filled out a report which included information about the incident her mother shared not long before her death about that time. Bruno threatened her with a gun when she refused to be intimate with him. It took a lot for her to go down there. She was hoping they would have reopened it. Nothing happened. Chelsea recalled being told that it was her word against her father's. An investigator suggested her coming forward could have been motivated by money. At that point, she had no idea she was even entitled to her mom's inheritance. Melissa left behind a will and over $300,000 meant to be divided between her husband and daughters. But not long after Melissa's death, Bruno had his daughter sign paperwork that gave him complete control of their mother's estate. He had sent Chelsea a paper in the mail and said, "Do not look at it. Go get this notarized and sign and send it back to me." She did. She did not question it. It was her dad. Sabrina said she knew she was signing away her rights to the money, but felt pressured to do it. He was so good at manipulating her and making her feel guilty. Chelsea signed those same papers, but said she was in shock and did not understand the consequences. It hurt that he would take from them, and especially from his grandson. The sisters said they began to wonder if money had been the motive for their mother's shooting, but without police action, they felt they had to move on. Chelsea kind of started letting it go. She even let her son Greg build a bond with his grandfather. She hated him for taking her mom from her, but she loved how good he was to her son. 4 years later, in 2020, Corporal Greg Allen was assigned to investigate open cases for the Pennsylvania State Police, and this case caught his eye. It was the original 911 call. On the 911 call, he heard 3 different accounts of what happened. When questioned, Bruno quickly changed his story. He said they were arguing. Then he said they were playing around with the gun and were going to go shooting, and he pulled the trigger and it went through his hand. He also offered another version. He was playing with the gun and let it go off. Bruno knew his way around guns, said Corporal Allen. So why would he have his finger on the trigger of a gun that was loaded? Crime Unit Supervisor Corporal Dan Nylon was asked by Corporal Allen to examine all the evidence, beginning with Bruno's police interview. There were so many red flags that they knew he was not telling the truth. To begin with, said Corporal Nylon, if Bruno was really trying to clear the gun's chamber, he would have ejected the magazine. The first thing someone does when unloading a gun is drop the magazine out of it. There were also 2 safeties on the gun. Corporal Nylon showed just how hard it is to discharge the weapon accidentally. The grip, the hand would have to be on the grip. Additionally, there is a trigger safety. There is a small piece of the trigger that has to be depressed in order for the gun to fire. Both things need to occur. There were also questions about where Bruno and Melissa were sitting when the fatal shot was fired. The way he was holding the gun, he was pointing it to the opposite side of the bed. But Nylon and Allen said there was blood and ballistics evidence on the wall behind Bruno, directly behind him. The evidence was there, but he said he shot the other way. They would need DNA testing and a forensic expert to confirm their suspicions that Bruno was lying. In the meantime, Corporal Nylon found a key piece of evidence that no one had ever examined: video and audio from the night of the shooting recorded on a home security system. The security camera mounted on the front of the house had recorded Melissa Rakuba's last words, "Self-alert." These were the final images of Melissa Rakuba recorded on the home security camera and DVR. Dan Nylon said when he first discovered the recording, he could see Melissa and her husband Bruno arriving home from their night out, but it was difficult to make out most of what they were saying. He remembered sitting in the office with the door closed, headphones on, the office refrigerator unplugged, trying to get as many words as he could. Greg Allen said that one thing was clear. There was definitely an argument that happened between them. Allen said the original investigators told him they had no way to review the recording because they did not have access to the necessary technology. But Allen's team did and could now see that the recording begins in the driveway where the couple could be heard arguing. Once inside the house, it sounded like they were still arguing, said Allen. That time of year, their window was open, so audio from inside could be picked up as well. The sound was just much harder to hear. But with Bruno's changing stories and possible evidence of an argument, investigators were now treating Melissa Rocuba's death as a possible murder. This was the last time she was ever seen. They had been doing this a long time, and they saw that, and the evidence spoke for itself. Lackawanna County District Attorney Mark Powell agreed. His gut reaction was this was probably a case that should have been charged back in 2013. He could only guess that they thought it did not warrant charges because Bruno shot himself through the hand. Who would purposely shoot themselves in the hand? With Powell's team now on board, Melissa's family was informed that the case was once again active. Chelsea said this was different. They were very sure about themselves that this was a crime. Her dad did this on purpose. Chelsea said she now had mixed feelings about her relationship with her father. She lived next door, so her son was very close with him. It was not black and white. Investigators then sent a portion of the DVR recording to an FBI crime lab for enhancement. The chances of this helping were probably slim because the system was old. DNA testing was also ordered on some of the blood evidence, and a forensic expert was hired to help determine how the shooting took place. They retained the services of Dr. Wayne Ross, who was a highly respected forensic pathologist and a blood pattern expert. About a month later, the enhanced DVR audio was back. Dan Nylon said it was clear the couple had been arguing right up until the moment the gun went off. There were lots of curses back and forth, yelling, screaming. It was still hard to make out every word, but the official police transcript noted that Bruno and Melissa could be heard cursing and calling each other names. The transcript also noted the sound of a dog barking. Then Melissa shouted that she did not do anything, nearly 30 minutes after they first pulled into the driveway. Melissa told Bruno that he had to leave because of something he had previously done hundreds of times. A bit later, Melissa could be heard talking. Then it sounded like things were being thrown. Just seconds later, the gun went off. It was not an accident. They were fighting the entire time. Then a gunshot went off. Joanne said she had not been able to listen to the recording, but had read the transcript. She was horrified. She cried. She could picture her sister yelling at him and screaming in those very last few moments, realizing that this was it. Also horrifying was the sound of Chelsea screaming after her father called her over, and she first discovered her mother. Bruno's answer gave police yet another version of his story. He said Melissa came home and wanted to take the gun out and play. He told her no, they were not doing that. He implied that Melissa had been the one holding the gun. A little over 2 weeks later, Mark Powell said forensic expert Dr. Wayne Ross confirmed what Greg Allen and Dan Nylon had suspected about how all the blood got on the wall behind Bruno. It was very clear that he was on top of his wife, that he was using his hand to hold her and threaten her with a gun. Bruno was almost in the middle of the bed, turned around facing the headboard. The theory was that Melissa tried to escape Bruno's grip, and there was a struggle, and through a struggle, his hand got loose. He fired the gun at the same time. There was blood evidence that started in one spot and traveled in a right to left pattern. That was Bruno's blood smears. The only way that could be explained was if Bruno did a motion with his hand after the bullet struck it. There was no accidental shooting when someone was standing over their wife with a gun, threatening to shoot her and discharged a bullet by pulling the trigger. In his world, that was not accidental. That was murder with malice. Joanne said if her sister was here, she would say, "Lock his ass up and get away from my kids and my grandkids and my grandkids."